Welcome to Barn Banter, the podcast by Horse Illustrated. Each month, we bring guests to educate, entertain, or inspire you as you pursue the horsey lifestyle, plus an adoptable horse with a unique story. I'm Susan Friedland, an equestrian author, blogger, and speaker with a soft spot for off-track thoroughbreds. You can find me at my blog, saddleseekshorse.com, or on Facebook or Instagram at saddleseekshorse.
And I'm Holly Kakanis, editor-in-chief of Horse Illustrated and Young Rider magazines. You can find us at horseillustrated.com, youngrider.com, and Horse Illustrated and Young Rider on Instagram and Facebook.
Hello again, Holly. It's so nice to see you. And I have a burning question for you.
Oh my goodness. Well, it's nice to see you. And what is the question?
I saw a picture on social media of you with an animal, and it was not a horse. And it was slithery and snaky. And did you get a snake as a pet?
You know, I have wanted a snake for like 20 years, probably more. I don't know. Whenever I was in college, I studied a lot of herpetology as part of my biology degree. We went and slept in the desert for 2 weeks on 2 different occasions. And there's not a lot of other animals that are easy to find out there. So I just got really into snakes and lizards. And for some reason, I just think snakes are so cool. I like how their scales feel. I like the way they like slither on your arm. I just like it. So, but you know, the one thing holding me back was what they eat, and I will spare our squeamish listeners from any details about that. But we were watching our class gecko for the winter holiday. My son's classroom has a leopard gecko, and it was very cute and very sweet to hold and just so nice. And it's like, oh, this is making me want that snake again. So I started doing some research, and I just really liked ball pythons because they are slow and they're not too wiggly, and they just kind of, they're a little bit harder to take care of as far as you need a pretty big enclosure, and you have to monitor the temperature and humidity and all this stuff, like scientific accuracy. So I just started looking at it, and I decided to go for it. So I went to a home show that had a reptile rescue that my mom knew about for whatever reason. She's like,
you should
visit
reptile rescues?
Yes, just like horses, people, cats, dogs, people dump their, I thought this was a good idea at the time, or my kid's going to college, or my kid lost interest in their gecko, or whatever, you know, and they just want to send it somewhere that the person will, you know, take care of it. So yes, there's a whole cottage industry of reptile rescuing. So, you know, me, in my soft, squishy heart, I always like to rescue my pets. So I went and visited, and I really wanted a young one because they do get, 3-4 feet long. The little ones are just so cute. So they did have one little baby ball python, and he was a pretty color, and I wanted a male because they don't grow as large.
Did you say, are you saying bald? Like B-A-L-D or ball?
B-A-L-L, because they curl up in a ball. I wish, do you want me to try to bring my computer over and show you? He's in a ball right now. So yeah, I just went, and they had one. Oh, you probably can't see. He's in this little corner. Balled up. You can't see. I'll send you a picture. So yeah, I'll put one in the show notes so everyone can see.
Yeah, do that. I'm sure our listeners
they just love to like roll up into like a little curl and just be in a ball. And so they're pretty easy to take care of. As a baby, they eat once a week. As a grown up, they eat every like 2 to 3 weeks, whatever. So it's pretty cool, and he's just very sweet. You take him out, and he's just so cute, and I sound like a crazy person, but that's okay. He's just really fun.
So the snake, this is truly Holly's snake. This isn't like your little boy wanted a snake, or your husband thought they were cool.
Yeah, my husband was not keen on the snake, but I think he saw that this was coming home, like, no matter what. So, and my son likes it. He'll hold it. Little boys are usually, as it turns out, the driver behind getting a pet reptile. And mom is usually the one who is most against it, which is so funny that it's like the opposite in my house. And it's funny because, sorry to just go on and on, but I'm into this now. So, it's kind of like horses. There are so many Facebook groups for ball pythons, and I've joined a few, and everybody is just so into their snake, and they put pictures, and here's like the new stuff I put in the cage to make it better, and here's a picture of my new guy, and now I have 4, and now I have 10, and now I have 15 snakes, and like people are just crazy, and they love their snake. Like, oh, my snake comes up to the window every time I walk by and wants to come out. He's just like a dog, and they all have different personalities, even though they're snakes. So it's really cute.
This is fascinating and kind of gross. But what is your snake's name?
His name is Freddie, like Freddie Mercury, because I thought that would go over better. My husband loves Freddie Mercury, so if he had a name like that he likes. So actually, my mom came up with that idea, and I'm like, I don't have the brain power to come up with the most wonderful name in the world anymore for my animals. I've used all the ones that I loved, for cats and dogs already, and horses.
So what did your mom say when you're like, oh yeah, I remember you wanted one as a kid, and finally glad it's not in my house? Or how did she?
No, it's so funny because she is my snake cheerleader. She was like, oh, are you going to get Freddie? Did you talk to the adoption? When are you going? Did they still have him? And then I was like, well, I don't know. And she's like, oh, I asked your dad if we could keep him at our house, and he said no. And so she wanted to keep him at her house. So I don't know. For whatever reason, she's totally into it too.
Wow. Well, I'm fascinated. So last episode, I learned about your painting passion. Now I know you're a snake charmer. Who knew? I
know. And I have started like dancing again a little bit. And I know you in a past life were dancing a lot. And so, yeah, it's just trying to do fun stuff and trying to get out, have a little bit of a social life and do stuff with my friends and, do stuff that I like. And because I don't have as much horse time, because that honestly is just so much time commitment. Like we've talked about living in SoCal, you have to be hours and hours a day just getting your horse out of their stall. So I'm trying to find things I can do like once a week or, a little bit easier schedule. And hopefully everyone saw my terrible painting on last episode's show notes.
It was good. I specifically... you should look at the show notes. Is that bad? Just because I know I'm a part of making the show, but I was
that's totally fine. But yes, Susan, I want to know what is new with you at Night, and we're going to talk a little bit about Equine Affair next month in April.
Yes. Well, as you know, Night is a solid citizen, and we did another... We've got this series of winter virtual horse shows. And so on Saturday, we recorded for the February show. And as I was writing the test, intro test B, USDF, I was like, okay, I feel like this is going better than last time. And then I ended it, and we had time if I wanted to record it a second time. And I thought, I think I can get him to go even a little more forward and maybe get a little more straight on the center line. So I said, okay, I'm going to take a breather. And then my trainer is like, okay, then just, get your trot going. And as I get my trot going, a sheet of ice and or snow, I don't know, I couldn't see it. We only heard it, just fell off the arena. And my normally non-spooky horse leaped forward, shook his head, exploded. It felt like an explosion. I felt like I was in a rodeo on a bucking bronc.
Oh, but you sat it?
Then my heart was, I sat it. I can sit stuff pretty well.
Well done.
My heart was kind of pounding. And I go, you know what? I think I'm good with that first test. So I just
not when you want to retry the most relaxed and
and the thing is, like, Night came out of it beautifully, but my thought was, it's warming up. Is this the first of things to come? Will there be more ice sheets coming off the arena? So, and then there was one other person that was going to come in after me, and I didn't say a word. I didn't know if I should say something like, hey, just a heads up, ice might come, but then it's like, you can't plant that seed of the idea in there. So she wrote ice free, but it was funny. So, but the best part was my mom was there and she recorded it. Oh. And so, you know, in my mind, it is this just explosion. Okay. So when I see it on video, maybe there'd be a way to do video in the show notes. I'm trotting, Knight shakes his head and launches into the canter like 3 strides. And then I get him back. But it felt wild and crazy. And it was like, oh, it was like I wanted to post it online, but I'm like, this looks so stupid because it's not even that much of a spook.
I still feel like a nice GIF would be in order.
Oh, yes. Maybe after the show, you can tell me how to make a GIF. I would love to make that.
I'm sure I don't know how, but somebody knows how. We can get one.
That's true.
Well,
but
good.
Equine Affair is coming.
Yes, it is in Ohio in April every year, and you are going and speaking.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I've been asked to to speak. I have 2 sessions. The first is The Real Misty, Secrets of Chincoteague's Beloved Pony. And I'm going to tell the backstory of Marguerite Henry, who wrote the book, of course, Misty of Chincoteague, and what that was like as she had the pony shipped to her farm in Illinois and lived with Misty for about a decade in her backyard. And, I've met, as I wrote my book, Margaret Misty Me, a number of people who actually rode the pony or met her when their school class went over to Marguerite Henry's house during their field trip, just a casual field trip. We went to a Newberry author's house and rode her pony. That is the star of a book and a movie and all of that. My second session is called Pony Swim Adventure, Catch Chincoteague's 100th Roundup, live or from home. What I didn't know until I got kind of involved doing this research and then went and watched the pony swim is that you can watch it online, and there's ways to be a part of that historic event, even if you can't make it in person. So I really will want to share some insider secrets in that session. So I hope if anyone's listening and you're going to Equine Affair, you would come and see me. And then I'll be there signing my book, Marguerite Misty and Me, and some of my other ones too. It's going to be really fun.
Yes, everyone should check that out if you are in the area or don't mind a little flight. And there will be some awesome clinicians there. And one of the big headliners is Julie Goodnight, who also happens to be our first guest today. So she's going to have a lot of great info. I just love hearing from her. She's just such a great communicator. She, has so much just amazing experience training horses, and I just love hearing anything that she wants to tell us about. So without further ado, our first guest, Julie Goodnight. Because mobility matters for every horse, look to Adequan IM, polysulfated glycosaminoglycan. For over 30 years, veterinarians, trainers, and owners have trusted Adequan. Ask your veterinarian if Adequan is the right choice for your horse. Learn more at adequan.com.
Julie, welcome to Barn Banter. We are so thrilled to have you here with us. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, and thanks for having me.
Yeah. So before we dive into all of our very probing questions, I would just love to know about your first pony, or maybe it was a first horse. You've had a lot of those experiences in life, and I just wonder, what does it all start with?
Yes. Well, I had the good fortune to grow up on a little horse farm. It was not it was just a hobby farm. My father loved horses. So we had ponies and horses. I consider my first horse, who greatly influenced my life. She was a Morgan mare. My father had raised her, and she was a mature mare by the time I was born. And so she was appropriately handed down to me as a little kid. And, it was, I would say, the classic Hollywood romance between that horse and I. She was, her name was Minnie. She'd go anywhere, do anything. We, swam in creeks with the alligators and jumped jumps and went on trail rides, whatever. She could do it all, like Morgans are prone to do. And she was a fabulous horse. She died of old age when I was 14, and it was the first time in my life I had experienced that kind of loss. And I thought it was going to kill me. I really did. I went into a deep, dark depression for a short period of time. But I snapped back. My father had wisely already bought me a replacement horse by then, and that horse was fabulous as well. So, but that was my first horse. We also had Shetland ponies, driving ponies that we rode as well. And so I did a lot with ponies, and they tend to make a good rider out of you. So I learned early on how to deal with spoiled ponies.
Okay, I want to back up just a little bit because for some weird reason, my Facebook feed, I always get alligator content. So, okay, swimming with the alligator, can you elaborate on that? Do they not bother horses, or because you're bigger than them, or how does that work?
They prefer dogs over horses in terms of menu items. No, I grew up in Central Florida, and there is a lot of water and a lot of alligators everywhere. And so I just say, so everywhere you went, there were alligators, and we had to be cautious of them, certainly. And my father had put out, serious restrictions about not going into the creeks to swim the horses, but we did it anyway, of course. So that was his concern, was alligators. But, if we saw an alligator, we just got the heck out of there.
Yeah. Okay.
So now you're sure to get more Facebook content on alligators.
Yeah, now that we're talking about alligators. All right. So it looks like you've done just about everything there is to do in a saddle. Obviously, riding the Shetland ponies when you were young, and that, English and jumping and Western and racehorses. How did you settle on mostly a Western style?
Well, for one thing, I moved out west, and that helps. I got very interested in riding English. My father was a Western kind of guy. My father was just a backyard horseman, but a real practical one. And he recognized my passion and my drive early on, and he wanted me to pursue it the way I wanted, and I wanted to jump horses. And I was surrounded by that in Central Florida, so it was a reasonable goal. And I grew up doing that, riding hunter-jumper, competing pretty heavily. Then when I went to college, I rode racehorses, which, I guess one could say in a way is an English discipline, if you could call it a discipline at all. But it was a high-contact endeavor, riding endeavor for me. So I went from riding, heavy contact on jumpers to riding racehorses, even heavier contact. And then after college, I moved to Colorado, and I don't know, I just became enamored of everything Western. And in particular, back in that time, the Western pleasure was really popular, not quite as controversial as it is today, but it just fascinated me that they could make those horses go so slowly without having any rein contact. Not only no rein contact, but like a foot of drape in the reins. I never was interested in doing Western pleasure. I was just fascinated that you did not need the reins to control the horse's speed. And that's really kind of what drew me into the Western disciplines. And by the way, I will tell you, switching from English to Western is hard. It's a hard way to go because you're so reliant on contact as an English rider. And we just ride Western horses differently. And you kind of throw away the contact, and you expect the horse to do all of that without constant interference from the reins. And that's really the part of the passion that drew me to the Western disciplines. And of course, I was living in a ranching, rural environment, trail riding in the mountains. And also, I kind of had just had my fill, so to speak, of riding English. I was ready for something new.
And you obviously have been training people and horses for a while. Is there a most common training problem that you see?
Speaking of the reins, Yeah, yes, of course. I think that in general, conflicting signals that are constantly being sent to horses, and a lot of that is through the reins and the contradiction. The equitation scientists refer to horses being trapped between stop and go cues, and micromanagement of trained horses. I see a lot is a problem. You try to micromanage a horse that knows his job. He gets frustrated and he gets resentful. So we see those kinds of things a lot. But I think mostly, if I had to just summarize and categorize, I would say conflicting aids in horses, and oftentimes even people they're confused in their own mind, or they're like letting fear into the equation. So you're frustrated because your horse won't go faster, let's say on the ground or in the saddle, and so then you get firm with him or whatever to reinforce your aids, and as soon as he speeds up, you grab the rein and slow him down again, or as soon as he speeds up, you stop him, and because your fear intervened at that point. And so those kinds of conflicts, I see them because I'm in the middle of the arena watching, is one thing, and the other thing is I see them from the horse's point of view more than the rider understands the horse's point of view, because the rider usually doesn't know or see the conflicting signals they're sending.
And would you say you're more passionate about training people or training the horses?
This is something that there was never a young horse trainer that didn't say, if only I could just train horses and not have to deal with people. And like all young, naive trainers, I thought the same thing. But I very quickly, being in business for myself, realized that there are no horses that write checks and pay bills. And you have to teach the people how to deal with the horse you've trained. And then I come to find out I actually am better at teaching than I am at training, I think. And I mean, it's not, I think I'm a good trainer, but I'm a very good splainer. And so I realized, relatively early, I trained horses hard for the first decade of my career. But by the second decade, I realized I had more to offer in training people, and that I could actually help horses more by doing that, by helping people do better. And but I discovered what I have to do for myself personally is train horses, because that's what gives me personal fulfillment, and it's also what makes me a better teacher and splainer. And so I make sure that, I've always made sure that I fulfill that own personal passion for myself, and that makes me a better instructor of people.
And I was just thinking, as you were talking, Julie, it probably, if you're, as you call it, splaining to people, you're not only setting them up for success with the horse in that moment that they own or are leasing or whatever, but then if they can really internalize those skills, then hopefully all the other horses down the road that they, ride or come into contact with, that'll also make them better for that. So
exactly. Exactly. We have an internal motto in our business that we're helping horses one human at a time. And the more you educate people, and we encourage people to take this information and educate someone else with it, the more, every time you teach it to somebody else, you learn it a little bit better. And I think that's important. And, I have been an instructor of instructors for most of my career. And I tell people, you don't have to apologize to me for using my stuff. I want you to use my stuff, but make it your own too. You can make it better. And so it's all about educating people, I think.
That's cool. So, and with your education, you have a horse training TV show, or you did for a while. I'm not sure the status, but I would love to know what it's like to shoot an episode with horses, because I know I've had photo shoots just for still shots with my horse and things don't go according to plan. So do you have any fun stories of situations maybe that went better than you expected on camera or that really deteriorated in a funny way?
Oh, gosh. You know, we filmed the TV show for 11 years, 270 distinct episodes. Each episode featuring a different horse and rider. It wasn't all riding, most of it was, but some of it was just ground work or what have you. But each 270 episode was a different horse and rider. And we tried to do, of course, different subjects. But, you know, as we all know, everybody has the same problems. So, you know, everybody wants to know how to get the correct lead. And, you know, everybody, well, what do I do with a horse that bucks when I ask him to canter or whatever? There's so many memories that stand out to me. But one thing we learned at the very first shoot, and we would shoot 3 times a year at 3 different locations around the country. One shoot would always be here at my ranch in Colorado in the summer. And then we would go someplace theoretically warm in the winter and, you know, so on. And people would apply to be on the show and they would have a stated reason. So there would be a stated subject, like my horse won't get in the trailer. And we would always, we had a very set format, and we always started filming with what we call the before footage. And literally, I would not interact with the horses or the people at all until that was filmed. I mean, I barely said hello to them because it's hard not to teach. And as soon as they would start talking about their problem, then it would influence the way I would do the episode. So also, I learned very early on in my career that horses size up new people really fast, and horses will size me up and recognize, let's say it's a trained horse that's learned to get away with some naughtiness from his indulgent owner. That horse will recognize me really fast as someone who has more authority and confidence, and they'll act differently around me. So I would literally keep a separation from the horses and the very first thing you would see on the TV show was my very first interaction with them. But what we learned at the very first shoot was we would only have success about 50% of the time in capturing the stated problem. And I still don't understand why it is, but horses have this uncanny knack for figuring things out and not doing what you think they're going to do. And for instance, the very first time we did a water crossing episode, this person, who, by the way, had an Arab and they're notoriously bad about going into water. And she said, no matter what I do, this horse won't cross water, won't step into the water. So we set up around, I have this beautiful horse-friendly pond on my ranch. And we had the cameras set up to do this before footage. And, you know, by the way, Arabs are also very smart horses. And that horse walked up, she's riding it, and it walked up. We said, okay, whenever you're ready, just, you know, take it to the pond. And she walked up. As she approached the pond, that horse kind of stopped, looked at the cameras, looked at all the people standing around, and she just marched right into the water, straight into the water. And that actually happened to us 2 other times on water crossings. So I don't know, maybe somebody can do some scientific research on that. I'm not sure how you'd pull it off, but it was just uncanny. So we always had to be prepared with a secondary, subject line. And when we couldn't capture the stated problem, we'd say, okay, well, do you have any other things you want to work on? And surprisingly, most of the time, that was better stuff anyway. Well, this particular, and I'll tell you, a really impactful, on the same episode, I said, after the horse walked right in, I said, well, is there anything else you want to work on? And she said, well, yeah, my horse bucks when I ask it to canter. Just, she just crow hops, but, I'd like to work on that. So we rebooted and we went to the arena, and I could see as soon as she started riding, I could see she had a horrendous saddle fit issue going on. And the mare, by the way, was a really nice, well-trained. She rode this horse hard in the mountains. It was a great horse. So when you see a horse, bucking, crow hopping, it wasn't really bucking, but it was crow hopping when she asked it to canter. It'd crow hop 4 or 5 strides and then canter. And, to me, those are big red flags. Everything else is just perfect with this horse. Why is she doing that? Let's figure that out. Well, anyway, I could see from across the arena, she had a bad saddle fit. And we changed the saddle on that horse and it was fine. However, when she rode up to me after the before footage, I was happily expecting to explain to her that, yes, you have a problem, but we have a good solution. And when I told her that I could see it was a saddle fit problem, she got really sad and she actually bursted into tears. And I was taken aback by it until I realized she was feeling guilty. She had been riding that horse for 2 years in that saddle. She had been just overlooking the fact that it was trying to tell her the saddle was hurting her. And like so many horse owners do, we overlook it and just say, I don't know why this horse is crow hopping, but let's figure out a way to make it stop. And we had not considered that the horse was trying to tell us something. And so I really, it made me sad that she got sad from that. But it also made me have a great deal of respect for her for owning that. And of course, I tried to make her feel better by we don't know what we don't know. And the important thing is we're fixing it now. But people, I can tell you in my career full of training horses, I've only seen that a handful of times where people actually immediately accept responsibility and then feel a great deal of remorse. And so anyway, I think it just spoke to who she was as a person. And we got the problem resolved.
You designed a saddle, and I saw this press release, and it was used in President Carter's funeral procession. I'm sure our listeners would love to hear all about that.
This has been I would say, if not a highlight, the highlight of my career personally that I never saw coming. I designed this saddle years ago. It's a hybrid saddle. I describe it as a hybrid saddle. It's a cross between an English and a Western saddle. It's very similar to an endurance saddle. And I modeled this saddle after the traditional cavalry saddle, which was called the McClellan. And I rode on a McClellan when I was a kid, and I had actually retired cavalry officers as instructors when I was a kid. I'm not aging myself too badly. So I knew, I just thought there were some cool features of that saddle. And so we started with that design and we researched it. And I say a saddle designer, I was working with a saddle designer from Circle Y. I don't know how to design a saddle. I just know what I want. I just know the qualities I want. And so I said, let's start here. And I want this close contact. I want this kind of girth. I want this and that. And they actually ended up fabricating a unique tree just for this saddle. Well, fast forward years later, just actually 2 or 3 years later, the cavalry, or sorry, not the cavalry, but the Arlington National Cemetery caisson unit is called the Old Guard. Their nickname is the Old Guard. And they are the ones that do the ceremonial horse-drawn funerals at Arlington National Cemetery. Anyone that's been to Arlington National Cemetery knows what a reverent place it is. And horses are not. You can't step foot on that ground without being incredibly moved. And so what happened was those caisson horses, they ran into some controversy. Their horse welfare issues were highlighted, and the Army shut down their operation until the entire program was rebuilt, literally from the ground up. Staff, leadership, they didn't have policies where they should have. They had a lot of military policies, not so many horse welfare policies. And it wasn't really anyone's fault. It just was historical. And, for instance, they didn't have policies on at what age to retire horses. So they were using horses longer than they should have and stuff. But they totally reformatted and rebooted. And as a part of that, they wanted it was actually mandated that they no longer use the McClellan saddle and that they find more appropriate tack, because saddle fit was a big part of the welfare issues that had come up. Well, when the Army started researching what they were going to do for saddles now, because I had made this saddle and I had publicized the fact that it was designed after the McClellan, when they started doing their Google searches, my saddle came up. Well, they looked at, dozens of saddles, and they also looked at custom saddles. And my saddle, and they went and bought one of my saddles, unbeknownst to any of us. And the next thing we know, we were contacted by the caisson, by the Old Guard unit, and they said they had narrowed it down to just a handful of saddles, and mine was the top one so far. Would we come out to Washington and have a little get together with them, look at how it fits their horses, give them some saddle fitting tips? And we did. My friend and colleague from Circle Y and I flew out to Washington, D.C., and we met the caisson horses and the soldiers that work in that unit, and we fit as many horses as we could. We took measurements and stuff like that so we would know what size trees they needed. These are big horses, and they're draft crosses and drafts. But that doesn't necessarily mean they need big, wide saddles. Every horse is unique. So we looked at all the saddles. Circle Y agreed to make some necessary adjustments that they needed to pull the caisson. The caisson is actually a heavy artillery unit. The ceremonial caisson that pulls a casket is not quite as heavy as, obviously, the heavy artillery, but these horses are ridden harness horses. So it's called postilion riding, and that postilion is when horses are hooked to harness, but they're being ridden instead of driven. So in this setup, 6 horses pull the caisson in pairs, so it's 3 pairs, and the left-hand horse is being ridden by a soldier who's also controlling the horse on his right. So postilion riding is riding a horse that's attached to harness, and each rider is actually riding 2 horses or guiding 2 horses. So it's really cool. So the saddles had to be customized to adapt to the caisson. So they're pulling, they're hooked up to harness as well. So they have a pulling thing that helps with the harness on it. But anyway, Circle Y agreed to make the saddles they need to have them ready in time. And their very first deployment, since they were put on suspension a couple of years ago, and they knew it would be, they were waiting for Jimmy Carter's funeral because he had requested the caisson for his funeral. And so the caisson unit, in their very first deployment, and all fitted out in my saddles, they brought the casket to the U.S. Capitol Rotunda for the viewing, for the multiple day viewing, and then subsequent funeral that occurred there. So yeah, it was a pretty cool honor, and to watch that unfold live on TV and see those horses, it brings tears to me now just thinking about it.
I didn't really know about that kind of riding and the caisson. I've heard that word and terminology before. That's really cool. Holly, you've been very quiet over there, but I see you nodding a lot. What questions do you have for Julie as we kind of wind down?
Well, one question I have, and this is probably weird, but just hearing you talk about your vast experience with training and just the TV show alone, 270 different horses, it made me think, have you ever met a horse that you just couldn't fix the problem, or seen a problem so difficult that it was hopeless? Or, I mean, I say fix, it's really us that wants to fix them. But
yes, of course I have. And I think anyone who's trained horses full-time for decades, if they tell you they haven't, they're lying. But I would never say, and I had never have said, it's only happened to me maybe twice, 2 or 3 times. And I would tell you that I'm just not the right trainer for this horse. And I would never say, this horse is untrainable. Or I would never say, give up on this horse. But sometimes I have to admit, I can't, this is more than I can manage. And I think probably a huge thing that influenced me on this subject was early on in my career when a horse was brought to me. It was an Arabian stallion. He was 4 or 5 years old, and he had been started by another trainer. And something had fallen through there, and the owner put the horse in training with me. And I understood the horse to be, sort of barely green broke. They didn't start on him real young. Well, I only had the horse for a day or two before I got a phone call from the previous trainer. And the man was very kind and respectful. And he said, you need to know this is a dangerous horse. This horse put me in the hospital. And the trainer was speaking from his heart. He wasn't mean or he wasn't hateful about the horse or anything. He was actually concerned about my welfare. So needless to say, I approached the training of this horse with a great deal of caution. But everything this horse was showing me and telling me was that he was just the gentlest, kindest, sweetest puppy dog of a horse. And I didn't get it. And I took him slowly. I started him from scratch as if he had never been trained before. And but pretty soon I was riding him, and we were going out on the trail. And the same owner had another horse we were training. It was a young Arabian filly. And she was actually just a 3-year-old and unstarted and everything. So I had a friend. By then, I had my friend riding the stallion. She was a very good rider. And I was riding the filly, and we were taking them out on the trail together. And this stallion had not missed a step. There was not a second that I had a concern over him. And we were probably 3 months in by now. And we go out on the trail, we were actually not on a trail. We were just riding across country in some open area. And we had ridden out miles. We were probably 5 miles from home. And I was riding directly behind the stallion who my friend was riding, or I would have never seen this. And we had been trotting and cantering and stuff. The horses were hot, and we were letting them cool off. And we were walking back towards the barn, although we were so far away, they weren't, really clued in on the barn or anything. But she had the stallion head down, draped reins, feet, and her feet were out of the stirrups. Just, picture yourself cooling down a horse. I was riding directly behind her, so I witnessed when the horse stepped on a stick with his hind foot, causing the stick to come straight up and poke him right in the testicles. Well, needless to say, he exploded into bucking And needless to say, she came immediately off the horse. She wasn't barely holding on to the reins, and her feet were out of the stirrups. And the horse took off, and she wasn't hurt, and I threw her back up on my horse. So we're both riding my horse now, and we only went, 50 yards before the stallion was standing there nickering at us. So because I had seen what happened, we knew there was nothing to be afraid of. And she got back on the horse and she rode him home, and he was fine. And that made me wonder, how could my experience with this horse be so different from that first trainer? I didn't do anything with this horse but just train it in a normal way. But if I hadn't seen that stick, if I had not seen the cause and effect, what would we have thought? That it was a defective horse. That out of the blue, for no reason, this horse just cracked in two. I was in the middle of the best ride of my life, and this horse just cracked in two and bucked me off. He's a dangerous horse. So anyway, I had that horse, and I've had a handful of other horses that somebody else couldn't train, but I was the right trainer for that horse. And so I'll never believe that it's an untrainable horse. I think we have to just say, I don't have the right skill set for this horse, and let's be honest about it. And that's why, a big reason probably why I've never been seriously hurt in this career.
Wow.
I've had a few concussions, don't get me wrong. That comes with the territory. Broken ribs and a few concussions, but my most serious injuries didn't come from horses.
And that reminds me that you are a big proponent of helmets, so I just want to give a shout out to that, because I think
only took a few concussions to figure that out.
But it's a little unusual in the Western world, and I'm glad to see it because, as an English writer, I've been wearing them ever since the 80s when they weren't doing too much, but but it's good to see. And then for people that are interested and, just love hearing about your philosophies and training techniques, could you tell us where people can get those resources from you, a little bit about your academy, your podcast, anything you'd like to promote?
Sure, I would love to. We have, by the way, all 270 episodes of Horse Master. I own all that content, and it's on my platform. And it's that particular content is only available through subscription, but it's a small monthly fee, and you have unlimited access. It's all searchable content. But I have amassed my entire career of content has always been online. So I have a massive amount of horsemanship content online in all formats, audio, video, and written word, and all searchable. You don't have to have a paid subscription to access a lot of the content. And then we have a lot of content behind the paywall as well. I also have an online coaching program there we call it the Interactive Academy. And that's a one-on-one online coaching program where I work with people remotely. And that's really, really fun and satisfying for me. It's what I do first thing in the morning when I get up with my cup of coffee is go in and respond to messages and look at people's assignments and see how they're doing with them. And so that's an online coaching program. And then if you're listening to this podcast, you might also be interested to know I have a monthly podcast. It's called Ride On with Julie Goodnight. It's on every platform, and it's horse training content, and it's super fun. I love podcasting, and it's hard to explain to people, but it's such a unique venue for me because when you're making a podcast, for the most part, I'm alone in my recording studio, and you forget other people are listening, for one thing. But the reason I love podcasting is because I can talk about things more candidly than I can talk about in a clinic. So for a subject, let's say somebody's having trouble with their horse in a clinic I'm doing in person. I'm very careful about taking care of that rider's emotional state. And I would never do something that would embarrass them or humiliate them or even just make them not feel so good. I'm very careful about how I handle people, particularly when there's a problem with a horse and, let's face it, it's probably the rider's issue, not the horses, but you've got to kind of explain all that delicately so as not to harm someone emotionally. And also you're in front of other people, so you have to protect that as well. Well, in the podcast, nobody knows who I'm talking about. I can describe situations honestly and candidly. And so I think that's why people enjoy listening to the podcast. It's also why I enjoy making the podcast, just because I can speak about things in a little more candid way than when I'm in person or in public. So that's kind of fun. I've been podcasting for a very long time before, it was actually a popular thing to do. And so we have, I don't know how many episodes, a lot, and over 400,000 downloads. So it's pretty popular. It has a big international pull, which has been fun to see. And so that's available everywhere. And just look for Ride On with Julie Goodnight or just Julie Goodnight, and it'll come up. So my website's juliegoodnight.com, and all that information, as well as my public appearance schedule, is on my website, and we invite people to come.
Absolutely. Actually, the reason we had the idea to have you on this month for our March podcast is because you'll be at Equine Affair April, the Ohio one. And we definitely want to encourage people to get out and see you if they're around the area. And I just think Equine Affair is so much fun, great clinic schedule. And I think you're definitely a headliner there, and people would have a great time going out to watch you. So we encourage them to do that.
I love Equine Affair. It's my very favorite horse expo. The people who produce it are very professional and just so easy to work with. And then I've been doing those shows for, again, saying this stuff makes me sound really old, but I am. I've been doing it for decades. And so what happens is you get to know attendees. And there are people that I've never known anywhere but there, but I'll see them and recognize them and get caught up on their horse stories. And so I'm really looking forward to being there in Columbus, Ohio this year.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Julie.
It's been my pleasure, and thanks for inviting me.
And joining us next is Stoney Stamper. He is the National Sales Director and Head of Dealer Development for Hart Trailer. Stoney, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Well, I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about the history of Hart Trailers. It looks like it has quite an interesting kind of family background.
It does. So we are in our 57th year of Hart Trailers, started in 1968, and was founded by Anthony and Kay Hart. They ran the business. So back in the 60s and 70s, Chickasha, Oklahoma was a very populated city with trailer manufacturers. At different points, there were over 40 manufacturers just right here in this one little town, and Hart being one of them. They're one of only a couple that remain. Building steel trailers, building two-horse side-by-side, just the horse trailers you pictured in your mind from the 60s and 70s, and built steel trailers until the early 90s. And then in the early 90s transferred over to aluminum trailers. So we've been building aluminum trailers now for a little over, about 35 years. The owner now is Tracy Hart, who is the daughter of Anthony and Kay Hart, the founders of the company. And, it's very much a family feel here. Everyone that works here, we have a lot of long-term employees. So it's a good family-run business. We're all horse people, which I think is important when you're building a product for horses and for equestrians, and to know how to use them and to know the proper places to it. Simple things such as bridle hooks and brush trays. And so being horse people, I think, is important for us and has helped us a lot over the years. my involvement with the company, my father, and my cousin actually had a dealership in Tulsa, Oklahoma, in the 90s, and I started working there then. And after I got out of college, went to work full time there as a Hart dealer, and my dad came to work directly for Hart around 2000, and he's still here. He works part-time these days. He's a little semi-retired, but he still has a lot of input and a lot of knowledge that has come from 35 years of aluminum horse trailer sales and manufacturing.
Absolutely. So I would say, sounds like you have an equestrian background yourself. What kind of riding do you do, or what kind of horses have you grown up with?
So my family had cutting horses. We have a cutting horse ranch in northeastern Oklahoma, and my grandfather was a trainer. My uncle was a many-time world champion trainer, and so that's really how we got in the trailer business. My family, not Hart, but my family, the Stamper, Randy is my father. We would go to every NCHA show that we could find, every cutting that we could find, and we, because those were the people that we knew and that we competed against, and so we just we really hit the NCHA and the cutting industry as hard as we could, and it really paid dividends. There was a time when you couldn't go to a cutting that the parking lot wasn't just completely full of Hart trailers, and so and we grew up on a working ranch, so it wasn't Yellowstone. It was cleaning stalls and working cows, and we had to have a pretty big family, so it was mostly a family affair. And so that goes back all the way back to about the 1940s when my family got in the horse business.
Well, that sounds pretty awesome to me. Even if it's not Yellowstone, it's a lot closer where I am in the suburbs.
Yeah,
so that sounds pretty fun.
We're not quite the Duttons, but it was a pleasure to grow up. At the time as a kid, it wasn't always. I didn't always love growing up on a ranch. It was a lot of work, but looking back on it now, it was a privilege to be able to grow up that way and to be able to have access to the kind of horses that we did, and it taught us a lot about, and I'm speaking for my brothers and sisters and cousins, that we've all, been behind the pitchfork and have worked there on the ranch, and I think it was good for all of us. And then in my case and my father's and several in the family still, the horse industry still continues to pay our bills to this day. So,
well, that's awesome to hear. We love to hear any place the horse industry is thriving. It sounds like certainly where you are, it's still as big as it can be. And what would you say is the most popular trailer you sell at Hart, and why do you think that is?
Well, so about 13 years ago, we designed, and when I say we, I guess Randy, my father, designed something called the Smart Tack. And at the time, it was very unique, and it was completely different from anything that anyone had really done up to that point. And the idea behind it was to be able to load your saddles from the ground. And we didn't know if it would work, but it has turned into in many different sizes, whether it be in a 3-horse or a 6-horse or even a 10-horse. That Smart Tack is our number one seller. Right now, if you were to walk through our production, probably 60% of them have a Smart Tack of some sort in them. And that's been a real game changer for us. It's a really good again, it goes back to being able to use the trailer and knowing how to use the trailer. And so we try to make it as user-friendly as we can. And you're able to load saddles and tack and all your bridles and everything without ever having to step up into a trailer. And if you've had to carry a heavy saddle, or step up into a trailer with a heavy saddle, it can be difficult, especially here where people have big roping saddles that weigh, quite a bit. So you don't have to step up into the trailer at all. You can just load it from the ground. And that changed the way people use trailers. And so that is definitely our number one seller. As far as size-wise, it's usually in a 4-horse, but we do a lot of different sizes, a lot of different configurations.
Yeah, I've always been a small 2-horse trailer person myself, but I'm amazed when I see those 10-horse trailers at the size of them, and driving them is a whole different ballgame, I'm sure.
Yes, definitely. We do, because we are a custom manufacturer, we do a lot of pretty custom big trailers, and we've recently redesigned a new bottom rail to accommodate even larger trailers, to give them a little more structure, a little more strength. We don't do anything kind of halfway. When we decide to make a change, we do it properly. We do it, we use our engineers and have everything designed so that there are no question marks on our end. So we've got some exciting new things coming out in this next year. I think that that will mostly affect those larger trailers, that big trailer market. But that's a lot of our business. We do sell 2-horse bumper pulls. We do sell, smaller trailers. But the large majority of our sales are larger, customized, pretty fancy products.
What would you say is a big mistake, or the biggest mistake you see with people buying trailers? Do they buy too big, too small? Do they have to come back a year later because they need to go upsize or down? What do you see?
In my experience, it is not buying the trailer that they want right away. So I see people that may try to save some money, and I get it. I'm no different than anyone else. You have to live within the budget that you have. But if you were to buy a lesser trailer and you have to buy one of those every 3 or 4 years, as opposed to buying one of ours that, I talk to people every day that have late 80s model, early 90s model Hearts that we built 40 years ago that only need new stickers or decals and things of that nature. But the trailer, the trailer is fine. And we are more expensive than some manufacturers out there, but we should be. And we feel that, if, in my opinion, when I've talked to customers, I would try to get them to realize the long-term costs of and savings in buying maybe more expensive today, but you don't have to worry about trading that trailer in a couple of years due to quality issues or just not being happy with the product. And to us, that's the most important thing. We want to be the best trailer on the road, and we want to be the safest for the animals and the safest for the people that are pulling the trailers. Safety is, paramount. It's our number one priority, are the horses and the people that use them. And I never worry. When we build a trailer, I'm confident that it is going to be something that will last.
Absolutely. Well, I think Everyone can agree that safety is the number one concern when you've got your horse out on the road, and just knowing that you prioritize that at the top, I think makes people, feel good about a purchase.
And that's not to say we haven't made our own mistakes over the years. It's just that we've learned from them. We're very mindful of, sharp corners or anything that a horse could get a shoe hung on, or anything. Anybody that's pulled many horses knows that if it can go wrong, it will, and we try to keep the opportunity for those events at a minimum. And so we do our very best to build the trailer so that there's just very little way that there can be any injury to horse or rider. And unfortunately, from time to time, we see people that have had wrecks on the highway pulling horses, and we obviously hate to see that. But it does make us feel good that people call us and say, hey, I was rear-ended by a car that was going 65 miles an hour and it didn't injure my horse at all. So we know that at that point, we know that we've done our job correctly.
That sounds amazing. And I loved hearing more about Hart Trailers today. And how can people find you online and on dealership lots where they're located?
So you can find us online at www.harttrailer.com. That's singular, harttrailer.com. You can find all of our models there. All of our dealers are there as well. We also send out a newsletter each week with spotlights on different products and different models. So if you were to go on our website, you can subscribe to that. And you can receive every Monday morning a newsletter directly from us that shows inventory that dealers have on their lots right now, new models perhaps that we're coming out with, and spotlight our current dealers and new dealers as well. But you can find everything. We're very active on social medias all across the board, from Facebook to TikTok. And, I'm personally not a huge TikTok person, but TikTok has become so popular, and we get a lot of followers on there as well. So Amanda Williams is our media marketing director, and thankfully she is much more savvy on that than I am.
Me too. I think I'm too old for TikTok, but it's definitely where all the young people are. Hey, definitely, that's where you need to reach them.
Kids love it, but me not so much.
Well, that's great. Stoney, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been good talking to you.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and I hope to talk to you again soon.
And joining us today, our final guest is Christina Malik, the equine manager from the Humane Society of Ventura County, and that's in Ojai, California. Christina, thanks for joining us.
Of course. Happy to be here.
We have a very cute Arabian mare today to talk about. She is just as typey as can be with her cute little dished face and just looks adorable and friendly. Can you tell us about Ariana?
Yeah, so she is an Egyptian Arab. She's 16 years old. She came to us from a owner surrender. The owner couldn't afford her medical needs. She called us, asked us if we could take her in, and so we did. And the medical needs she needed was surgery to remove her teeth because she has EORTH.
So we've done some articles about that in the past, and I feel like it's just becoming more known. I'm sure it's always been around, but just kind of in that late teen, kind of more getting towards a senior horse age, they're kind of the roots of their teeth start dissolving, but it's the incisors only. So is that what your vet discovered after or I guess they already knew when she came to you? So
yes, she had a hard time eating. She was very uncomfortable. She lost weight. And so it was actually our veterinarian who referred the owner to us for us to take her in. And so once we got her, we scheduled her surgery. She had it done, and she's been amazing ever since. She can only eat pellets. If she has hay, she'll colic. And we don't know if that's related to after surgery because she doesn't have her front teeth, but she's just a sensitive girl to hay.
So just special dietary needs. Is there anything else as far as, supplements or medications or any other particular care besides the food?
She is on a metabolic powder and some insulin pellets. And she also is, if she gets stressed out, she's prone to ulcers. But she is very responsive to the ulcer guard that we give her.
Good to know. And then could you tell us a little bit about what you think she'd be best suited for and her kind of training background?
Yeah, so she would be a really good companion horse for somebody. She loves all the other horses. She has been started under saddle. So if someone wanted to use her as a riding horse, she would probably do best with a restart under saddle. And just kind of a refresher if somebody does want to start her as a riding horse. But best case scenario for her would be pasture buddy for somebody.
Okay. And it looks like she has some promise as maybe a therapy horse.
Yes.
Something along those lines. So anyone looking for a horse that can, it looks like her personality is really just very sweet. Has she done, it looks like some work with therapy already.
Yeah, so she's got the sweetest personality. We use her for what's called Fun at the Shelter here. It's once a month. Different facilities will come, mostly assisted living facilities will come, and she loves people in wheelchairs. That's like where she walks right up to them, puts her head in their lap, lets them pet her. She's not afraid of the wheelchairs. So she's really good with any kind of like therapy program. She loves people brushing on her. If you walk away, she'll walk right back up to you and insist that you keep brushing her. So she would be good for any kind of therapy program.
Well, she sounds just like a darling, and we definitely hope that she will find her right person out there listening to this. Yeah. And we will put her pictures and link in the show notes. But tell us a little bit about your facility, and you're in the most beautiful, I think, being a Southern California part of the country here. Ojai is in Ventura County, and do you have a big facility? Do you do just horses? What's kind of the specialty?
So we do dogs, dog adoptions, cat adoptions. We do horse adoptions. We're actually getting a goat today, so that's fun for us.
Cool.
So that goat will go up for adoption. And we have a spay and neuter clinic here. We do a lot of outreach. We do have so we go out into the community and help people with dog food, cat food, spays and neuters. So it's really fun. We do, like, a lot of people like to come walk around, look at the animals. So it's pretty fun, right? I think we're on 4.4 acres here.
And how many horses do you usually have at any time?
It really just depends. Right now we have 8. Most of our horses come in from abuse and neglect cases through our officers. We have just started an owner surrender program for equine. So people call us and say, hey, I need help. I can't afford my horses. Is this horse something you can take in? If we cannot, we do have a partnership with a local rescue here. If we can't take the horse in, we ask them if they can take the horses. We do give the people resources if we can't take the horse in.
Yeah, that's always good. And I know people are generally surprised by how many horses are in California, Southern California, but we do have a lot of need. And if people are closer to this area, I think knowing about adoption resources nearby before they go horse shopping, they should check out definitely the adoption front. And there's just so many different types of horses available. I know a lot of times we discuss companion horses on here because they usually stay a little longer and need a little extra getting the word out. But whatever you're looking for, I think it's good to know what's in your area and go check out the facility and see what you guys have. But yeah, we'll have the Right Horse link up for Ariana. And Christina, thank you so much for joining us today.
Of course, thank you for having me.
Don't be shy. Show us some barn banter love by leaving a review, and you can tell all your friends too.